Hello everyone. Welcome to the session of Animal Kingdom NCRT exercise part 1. Disclaimer: the images, text and other material used in our presentations are for educational purposes only. We respect the intellectual property rights of the creators and owners. If you are the owner and have any concerns or issues, please contact us at sathi@iitk.ac.in and we shall remove the content immediately. Please note that the parts of the content may have been generated using the generative AI, which is totally experimental. So today's session, learning objective. So what is the learning objective? We will explore and understand the fundamental concept of a chapter, Animal Kingdom, by working through the NCRT exercise questions. So today we are going to solve the NCRT questions, right? So in that respect, the first question is here: what are the difficulties that you would face in classification of animals if a common fundamental features are not taken into account? So they are talking about the fundamental features. So first thing that you should know, what are the fundamental features? Because if you are not without knowing this fundamental features, you will start the process of classification. Or if you follow the process of classification, you won't be able to do that. So it is very important to understand fundamental features. So if we define the fundamental features, that the common fundamental features that are essential characteristics that are shared among the group of animals. Okay, that is a particular group of animals, and that is the essential characteristics that are shared in a particular group. They help in organizing and classification the vast diversity of animal life. So you all know that animal life is a very big number, right? And so how to study them? It won't be easy to study all the animals that we see in the case of Animal Kingdom, right? It is not easy task. So for that, to study all the animals, we follow animal classification. So what is the basis of animal classification? Common fundamental features, and also some are the specific features. In the theory class, we have talked about the fundamental features as well as the specific features. So specific features belong to a particular phylum. If I take an example like poriferans is our pore bearing animals. So those pores are present only in the case of poriferans, not in other phylum. So this is the specific characteristic of this phylum. And what are the fundamental features? We will know. Like we talk about symmetry. We have talked about symmetry in almost every phylum. We have talked about the organization, level of organization, whether the organism is cellular level, of the tissue level, organ level, or the organ system level of organization, right? So this is again a fundamental feature that is common in all the we study in all the phylum. That is the fundamental features. Yes, layers of germ layers, germinal layers, right? We have talked about the type of germ layer that we see in the case of organisms when they are in the embryo development stage, right? Diploblastic and triploblastic. Diploblastic 2 germs layer and triploblastic 3 germs layers, right? So that is the fundamental features that we see in case of every phylum. So here the question is about what are the difficulties that you would face in classification of animals if the common fundamental features are not taken in account. You are not following the fundamental features, right? Like circulatory system, reproduction, this you are not following. Then how you will able to classify? What are the difficulties that you will face? So let us see the answer of this question. And this question belongs to your NCERT section 4.1, right? So let us see the answer. So this was our question. What are the difficulties that you would face in classification of animals if common fundamental features are not taken into account? So, animals are classified on the basis of common features such as arrangement of cell, body symmetry, nature of coelom, body cavity, whether the organism is acoelomate or pseudocoelomate or true coelom, right? Or eucoelom. So we see this as a feature, fundamental feature, that is the presence of type of coelom. Okay. Digestive tract, whether that digestive tract is complete or incomplete. What is the meaning of complete digestive tract? Complete digestive tract is there when it has two opening, mouth and anus, right? So that we say that, for that case, we say that the digestive tract is complete. In digestive tract, only one opening is there. That is indirect digestive tract, or not indirect, incomplete digestive tract. Circulatory system, open and closed type of circulatory system. Open type of circulatory system, right? What we see in that, the heart pumps the blood and it pour all the blood on the cell and the tissue. So that is the open type of circulatory system. Closed type of circulatory system. In closed, the blood from the heart goes to the different organ via blood vessels, and we are having the three different types of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries, right? So, and we have seen the reproductive system also. Reproductive system. What we have seen in the case of reproductive system in the different phylum? Monoecious, dioecious, right? So such condition we have seen in the case of reproductive system. External reproduction, internal reproduction, where the reproduction is taking place. On the basis of that, again, we have seen where the reproduction is occurring. So all these features we see in every phylum. We talk about these features in every phylum. So this is the fundamental features that is common in every phylum. What are the other thing? Let us see that. Without these common features, it is very difficult to treat each organism individually. We cannot treat the organism individually without taking these features in account. It is impossible to add new species detected every day without common features. It will be difficult to classify organism to respective phylum. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So it is impossible to add new species detected every day without common features. If you do not follow these common features, if you suppose you got an animal, right, and you noted down some features that you see in that organism, like about the wings, suppose it has wings, type of legs, forelimbs, hind limbs, right, the type of symmetry it is having, everything you are noting on a paper. So what you are noting down? You are noting down these common features only that you are going to see in each and every organism, right? So these are the common features. And if you do not follow this, it will be very difficult. It is very difficult to classify the organism. Yes, excretory system is followed, but in some of the organism, the excretory system is totally absent. Like in the case of Echinodermata, in the case of Poriferans, there is no excretory system. The excretory system first time came in the case of Platyhelminthes in the form of flame cells, right? Okay, and when you move to the further like the advanced phylum, you see that the excretory system keep on changing. Nephridia is there. Nephridia is there in the case of Annelida. Okay, in Arthropoda, again it get changed. So when you move from one organism to another, you see that these excretory system are changing. But in some of the phylum, this is totally absent, right? Because there some of the like water canal system is there or water vascular system is there, that is helping in the process of excretory system or excretion of the waste material. So it is impossible to add new species detected every day without common features. And to study the diversity in animals, if you want to study the diversity in animals, classification must be based on some common basic features, right? External features. What is external feature? How the organism look like? So if you see like poriferans, suppose you are seeing the poriferans, what features you see on the external features? What are the external morphological features? How the organism look like? It is having the pores like structure. That is the external feature. It is sessile. It is attached to the substratum. It is a morphological feature, external features, right? So we are considering the external features. So like what you must also understand in the common features, suppose I'm taking a symmetry example. Which of the symmetry is advanced one? We are having asymmetrical organism, we are having the radial symmetry, we are having the bilateral symmetry. Which you will which of these you will say that this is the most advanced one? Which symmetry? Whether it is a asymmetrical, radial or bilateral? It is bilateral symmetry. Bilateral symmetry. In the case of radial symmetry, most of the time the organism is in circular form. Circular form. And if they are having the different appendages, then also you see that they are in a circular and they are having a different like appendages that are of same length, like you see in the case of Echinodermata. Hmm? Echinodermata. So the organism which are circular, they are showing the radial type of symmetry that you see in the case of Ctenophora, radial symmetry, right? But when you see the advanced organism, they are having appendages like human. We are having four limbs and hind limbs, and we are the most advanced creature. Mammals. So they are mostly having the bilateral symmetry, right? So in the fundamental features also, like we are having the different types of symmetry. This is one fundamental feature, symmetry. And in the symmetry, you see three different types of symmetry. Similarly, we see the level of organization, cellular level of organization, tissue level of organization, organ level of organization, and organ system level of organization. Now, which is the most advanced? Organ system level of organization, and which is the least? Cellular level of organization that we see in the case of poriferan. So now you see all this are placed according to the advanced. When you move from poriferan to cnidarian to Ctenophora to Platyhelminthes, Esculenthes, Annelida, then comes the Arthropoda. So this is the sequence in which the organisms show their complexity. They are moving toward the advanced features from one phylum to another. right? So that is why this fundamental feature is very, very important to understand each and every phylum. And without these, following these features, you will not be able to classify the organisms. Okay. Okay. Next question is here. Question number 2. If you are given a specimen, what are the steps that you would follow to classify it? This is a very, very important question. What is a specimen? What is the meaning of a specimen? Hmm? The organism you take as suppose you got an organism in your laboratory. You must have seen that for your study, many animals are kept in a bottle, and they are immersed in, or you can say they are dipped in a solution. That solution is called uh, formalin solution. That solution is called formalin solution, and in that the organism do not get desiccated or get destroyed. They will be like that only for many years, right? So that will be helpful for your study, right? So if you are given a specimen, what are the steps that you would follow to classify it, right? So these are the steps: classification, identification, nomenclature, characterization. Okay. So let us see the answer of this question. So this is a question, and that comes from the section 4.1. If you are given a specimen, what are the steps that you would follow to classify it? Let us see that. The steps to classify the specimen are given below. Classify level of organization. First thing, you will see that whether it is having a cellular or a tissue level of organization, or a organ level of organization, or a organ system level of organization, right? What type of which level of organization it is having, right? So classify the level of organization, classify the arrangement of cells in the cellular and the tissue level of organization. Symmetry. Next thing, you will see that organism and you will analyze what type of symmetry it is having. Classify the organism according to the radial or the bilateral symmetry. But some organism also show the asymmetry. No symmetry is seen in that organism, right? There are some phylum. So we are having the radial or bilateral symmetry as well. So you will see that whether it is having a bilateral symmetry, radial symmetry, or asymmetry. Classify diploblastic or triploblastic organization. What type of like layers of cells are present at the time of embryo? Whether it is having the diploblastic or the triploblastic type of organization. So you will classify the organism if they are having the only two layers, ectoderm and endoderm, and in between ectoderm and endoderm there is a mesoglea, gel-like substance, then you will say that organism is a diploblastic. And when you see that the organism is having the three different layers, ectoderm, endoderm, and in between ecto and endoderm there is a mesoderm layer, cellular layer that is called as mesoderm. So that you called it as a triploblastic organization. Presence or absence of the body cavity, very, very important. Whether the organism is having the body cavity or not. And you all know that what is the body cavity? The body cavity is the cavity or the space present between the body wall and the outer lining of the gut or your alimentary canal. So this body cavity also got a very scientific name, that is called as coelom. Yes, coelom. So if the organism is having the body cavity, then, and it is a true type. Now we must understand what is the meaning of this true type of coelom. See, if the cavity is lined by the mesoderm layer cells, then you call it as a true coelom or eucoelomate. Eu means true. Eukaryotes. U means true. Karyote means true nucleus. Similarly, eucoelom. Eu means true and coelom means body cavity, means true body cavity. Right? So, the cavity is called as a true coelom or eucoelom when it is having the mesodermal lining on the body wall as well as the outer lining of the gut wall. Outer lining of the gut wall. Both are having the mesoderm layer. Then you say that this is a true coelom. And sometimes they are present in a small pouches, and either the body wall or the gut wall is not lined by the mesoderm, but the mesoderms are present in small pouches, right? So that is called as pseudocoelom. Coelom is there, but it is not a true type because the body wall is not lined with the mesoderm layer, the gut wall is not lined with the mesoderm layer, right? So in that case it is called as a pseudocoelom. Pseudo means false. Pseudo means false. Coelom means body cavity, means false body cavity. And there are some organism in which no coelom is present, means no body cavity is present. No body cavity is present. So those organisms are called as acoelomate. So we are having three different category on the basis of the body cavity: acoelomate, pseudocoelomate, and true coelomate or eucoelomate, right? So you have to remember this: presence or absence of body cavity. Type of coelom development, and classify the segmentation. Yes, platyhelminthes do not have any development of the coelom. So they are acoelomate. But what about the Aschelminthes? In the case of Aschelminthes, the coelom or the body cavity are present in the small pouches. So they are called as pseudocoelom, right? Classify segmentation. We have talked about this segmentation also. Segmentation also comes under the fundamental features, whether the organism is segmented or not. And the segmentation is also of a true, means a very different type. Like some organism is segmented from the external only. But when you see internally, they are not showing any type of segmentation. But if you see some of the organism that they are having the demarcation of the segmentation from the external body surface as well as internally also, and these every segment is having the repetition of one or other organs. Repetition, you will see every segment is having repetition of the organ. So that is called as metamerism, metameric segmentation, that is called as. Differentiate the presence or absence of notochord. Notochord, if the notochord is present, then you will keep it in chordata. But if it is not present, either it is in an embryonic stage or in the adulthood stage, it is not found, then you keep it in invertebrates, non-chordates, right? So these are the fundamental features that, like, if you get a specimen, you have to see that they are having such category or not. And if they are having such a category like diploblastic or triploblastic, in this way you can classify, and ultimately you will reach to that phylum in which this organism belongs to. Okay, we are having our next question is here: how useful is the study of the nature of body cavity and coelom in the classification of animals? So We study the different fundamental features in the classification of organism, but here they are talking basically about the body cavity and coelom, right? So we are talking about the coelom. So what is coelom? We all know that what is coelom, that is the body cavity. Hmm? So let us see the answer of this question. So how useful is the study of nature of the body cavity and the coelom in the classification of animal? This is the question. What is the work of notochord? Please explain. Okay. Notochord are actually the, uh, you can say, it is a rudimentary type of thing that forms the vertebrae. Okay. Notochord also regulates the formation and the placement of the vertebrae. Now, what is the vertebrae? Vertebrae are the small bones that forms the vertebral column, right? And inside this vertebral column, there is a presence of our a thick nerve cord, that we call it nerve cord, right? But this uh, rudimentary type of notochord, this notochord in the case of chordates transformed into the vertebral column. So these are the notochord is the instrumental in organogenesis. It is a organogenesis step, and in that step firstly we see that notochord formation. In the case of organogenesis that is the differentiation of body cells, and that later on produce the organs. So this notochord transforms into the vertebrae, or you can say the vertebral column, right? Okay. So let us comes to the answer to of this question. How useful is the study of the nature of the body cavity and the coelom in the classification of animals? So coelom is the body cavity or the fluid filled space lined by the mesoderm. So we are generally saying this body cavity, but this body cavity is not vacuum. It is filled with space. It is a fluid filled space. Fluid filled space that is lined by the mesoderm. It is lined by the mesoderm, and an animal with the coelom is called as coelomate. So whenever it is written there coelomate, coelomate means true body cavity is there, presence of true body cavity, right? In some animals the body cavity is not covered by the mesoderm. They are not covered by the mesoderm, means outer lining is not made up of the mesoderm layer. Instead the mesoderm is a scattered cyst between the ectoderm and the endoderm. So they are present in a small pouches, or you can say the cyst form, right? Small pouches. So that is called as pseudocoelom. Such body cavity is called as pseudocoelom. False coelom. Pseudo means false coelom. Eucoelomate means true body cavity. You or coelomate, that is the same thing. Don't get confused. Yes, we can call it as a eucoelomate also for this coelomate. Coelomate, true coelom. Eucoelomate, true coelom. Okay. Now, the second type in which the mesoderm layers are present in the small pouches, those coeloms are called as pseudocoelom, false coelom. And the animals that have them are called coelomates, right? So those animals that are having pseudocoelom are called as pseudocoelomates. For example, Escalmenthes. What are the examples of Escalmenthes? Roundworms. Escalmenthes are commonly called as roundworms. So we are having the Ascaris. Ascaris as an example of the roundworms, right? Some animals have no body cavity. Okay, no body cavity, and they are called as Acoelomate. Those organisms are called as acoelomate. For example, platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes are commonly called as flatworms. Flatworms. Because they are dorso-ventrally flattened. Dorso-ventrally flattened. And they are not having any body cavity. No body cavity is found here. Right? So they are acoelomate. Acoelomate. Classification of the body cavity and the coelom is important to decide the complexity of an organism at the organ level. So this is very, very important to understand that the body cavity, formation of body cavity means the organism is moving towards the more complex one. So it decides the complexity of an organism. No coelom means the organism is not a complex type. It is a very simple type of organism. Then comes the pseudocoelom. Okay, it is quite advanced than the acoelomate, and then later on comes the coelomate or the true coelom. So that are called as most advanced one. Next question is here. Distinguish between the intracellular and extracellular digestion. In many phylum, we have seen that it is written that extracellular digestion or simple intracellular digestion. But in some cases, in some phylum, we have seen that it is written both intracellular and extracellular digestion, right? So let us see that. This was our question. And answer is here. It is given in the column wise. Intracellular digestion and extracellular digestion. So it occur in lower organism. Intracellular organism. Where it occurs? It occur in lower organism. Extracellular digestion occurs in multicellular organism. Multicellular organism. Intracellular digestion occur within the cells. Okay, within the cells. And extracellular digestion occur within the cavity of the alimentary canal outside the cell. Outside the cell. So if we talk about like humans, we are having a well developed alimentary canal digestive tract. So the digestion, where the digestion of food taking place, when you eat food, you grind it, you chew it, masticate it, mix with the saliva, and that it moves. The food moves in the form of bolus from this esophagus to the stomach. Right? In the case of stomach, we are having the different gastric juices there. So we are having the secretion of HCl, mucus, and pepsin. Right? So there the digestion start. So that digestion is not taking place inside any cell. It is occurring in the alimentary canal or a cavity like things. Right? So it is not the food is not getting enter inside the cell. It is extracellular digestion. So occur within the cavity of the alimentary canal outside the cell. It is less efficient with no regional differentiation. Intracellular digestion, it is less efficient with no regional differentiation. So in the case of lower organism, we see that this is intracellular. It is very less efficient, right? Because they require less amount of energy. Extracellular digestion, highly efficient with the regional differentiation. Regional differentiation. Enzyme associated are very few. Here in the case of intracellular digestion, only some enzymes are associated and rest of them are free. Right? Extracellular digestion, large numbers of digestive glands and the enzymes are required. So these are some of the differences in the case of intracellular and extracellular digestion. This is our next question. What is the next question? What is the difference between direct and indirect development? We have already talked about this type of development, direct development and indirect development. So this question comes from the section 4.2. What is the meaning of direct development or indirect development? So let us see the answer of this question. So this answer of this question is again given in the you can say the column based. Direct development. What is the meaning of this direct development? Occurs in fishes, reptile, birds and mammals. In the case of direct development, the embryo develops into a well-grown individual without involving a larval stage. So no larval stage is seen in the case of direct development. No formation of larva. What is larva actually? So when the embryo formation takes place, the new organism come out. This new organism doesn't look like, if it is doesn't look like the adult, then it is called as larval stage or indirect. But if it looks same, whether it is the size could be small, but it looks same like the adult one, then you call it, this is a direct type of development. So this line, second line, in the direct development, the embryo develops into a well-grown individual. The embryo comes out in a form of well-grown individual without involving a larval stage. So here, no larval stage formation takes place. So metamorphosis is absent. Actually, metamorphosis is a transformation of the larval to the adulthood. That is the step of transformation from the larval to adulthood. And here, there is no formation of larval stage. So why there is a need of metamorphosis? So that is why the metamorphosis is totally absent. The examples of the direct development is here, Hydra and earthworm. In these two organisms, Hydra belongs to the cnidarians and the earthworm belongs to the annelida. Both are not showing any larval stages, right? So they are following the direct development. Let us see what is the meaning of indirect development. Indirect development occurs in vertebrate, amphibians. Very good example. Amphibians. Frog. Very common example of the amphibians. It involves a sexually immature larval stage. So here what we see there is a immature larval stage. The larva is formed and the larva doesn't look like the adult. That is why it is called as larval stage, right? So in the case of frog, what we see from the egg, what comes out? Tadpole. That comes out, the tadpole. If you see the external morphology of the tadpole, what you see? You can see the tail. You can see the tail. There is a presence of tail and it swims in water like fish. It is having gills for the process of respiration. It is not having lungs at that time. It is having gills. So it cannot survive on the land. But what do you see in the case of frog, the adult one? It can easily live on the land as well as in the water. The respiratory organ, lung is well developed. And it can seen on the land also. So that is in the, and there is no presence of tail. The tail is gone in the case of tadpole. Slowly and slowly, as this tadpole transformed into the adult frog, okay, its tail vanishes. So it involves a sexually immature larval stage. Metamorphosis is present. So what is the metamorphosis? a step of change from the larval to the adulthood. Okay, so slowly and slowly the tail is vanishing out from the tadpole. Slowly and slowly the gills get covered, but instead of gills, in internal side, internal organ, that is the lungs, get developed. And once the this lungs get developed, and it is having the well developed forelimbs and hind limbs, now this changes to the small frog, and the small frog can comes out of the water, and it could be seen on the land also. So indirect development here we can see in the case of frog and butterfly. In butterfly also, when the butterfly lay eggs, you can see the egg stage, then comes the caterpillar, then comes the pupal stage, pupa, and then comes the adult butterfly, right? So here also we see the different stages, and that is called as metamorphosis, right? So this is the difference between the direct and indirect development. Next question is here. What are the peculiar feature that you find in the parasitic platyhelminthes? This platyhelminthes is a very, very different phylum. Uh, Actually, we are having the three different worm phylum, worms. Platyhelminth. Helminths mean worms. Helminth. The helminth, this term, helminth, this is the worm. Platy means flat, so flatworms, right? So what are the peculiar features that you find in the case of parasitic platyhelminthes? Parasitic platyhelminthes. They are not talking about the common platyhelminthes, but they are talking about the parasitic platyhelminthes. Let us see that. So this was our question. What are the peculiar features that you find in parasitic platyhelminthes? A typical feature of the parasitic platyhelminthes are free-living parasitic forms. They are free-living, but they are parasites. Parasite means they are found in different organisms' body, inside the body. They have an organ level of organization. So they are having the organs. Development of the organs is seen in the case of platyhelminthes. Mostly hermaphrodites. They are hermaphrodite, means the organism is having both the sexes in the same individual. They are having the male reproductive organ and female reproductive organ in the same individual. So that particular organisms are called as hermaphrodites. Three-layered body wall. The epidermis, that is the outer covering, is often ciliate and covered with cuticle, and that is also covered with the cuticle. Why this covered with the cuticle? Because this organism is living inside the body, and inside the body there are many enzymes and acids, right? So for their protection, they are having the covering made up of cuticle. Other features, the digestive tract is incomplete or absent. There are many platyhelminthes in which this digestive tract is totally absent, because they are living inside the digestive tract only of the host. They are living inside the digestive tract of the host, and whatever the digestive materials, nutrients are present there, they absorb that. They are totally absorbing that. You are not getting that nutrient which you have digested in your body. They are absorbing all that nutrients, and the host body becomes weak and weak day by day, because there are many worms inside the intestine that could absorb all those nutrients, digested nutrients, right? There are some organisms in which the digestive tract could be incomplete. Incomplete means they are having just one single opening, right? Either it could be totally absent or it is incomplete. Incomplete means one opening is there. You can say the digestive tract is complete only when it is having the two opening. One is called as mouth and another is called as anus. So from one side you take the food and from the other side, from the anus, you withdraw all the or take out all the undigested food material from the anus part. The presence of well-defined excretory structures such as flame cells. They are having the excretory structures like flame cells. Flame cells. So these flame cells, yes, this examples. Flame cells, yes, they are helping in the process of excretion. So this is a type of organ. This is a type of organ. So first time the organ formation is there. So organ level of organization. System has not been formed here, but organ is formed here. So the presence of well-defined excretory structure is seen here, and that is called as flame cells. Presence of antitoxin and a thick tegument which is resistant to the digestive enzyme of the host. They releases some antitoxin. So this antitoxin help them to be there in the digestive tract of the host, and they could survive there because there are many digestive enzymes, there are acids released, right? There are release of the alkaline solution also, but they are protected. They are protected because of their thick tegument, right? That is resistance to all the digestive enzymes of the host. So who is the host? Like if in our body any platyhelminthes is there, let's suppose this tapeworm is there. So tapeworm is the parasite and our body is the host, right? So this parasite tapeworm is having a very thick tegument layer that helps them to be resistant against the digestive enzyme that are released in our body. Next point, anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. There is no aerobic respiration because they are living inside our alimentary canal. So there the oxygen could not reach out, right? And that is why they are having the anaerobic respiration. No special respiratory structure was observed. No special respiratory organ is there, right? So that is why they are following the anaerobic type of respiration. The front body part has suckers and hooks, eye spots and auricles to attach to the host. These are the structures. Hooks. They are having the hooks on their head region. Now these hooks helps them to get attached to the tissue of the internal intestine. With the help of their hooks, they get attached to the wall of the intestine. So they cannot passes away along with the undigested food material. They will be there. The food material can pass out, but they will be there. And they can, with the help of suckers, they can absorb the digested food material. They are having the eye spots. Planaria, first time we see there's a development of the eye. And planaria also belongs to this platyhelminthes, right? So they are having the eye spots and auricles that helps them to attach to the host. Actually, eye is not helping there to get attached to the host, but yes, hooks and suckers are there. But yes, they look, they see where is the things, and according to that, with the help of these eye spots, rudimentary eye. This is the rudimentary eye spots. This is not the true eye, right? A highly developed reproductive system of a parasitic form. This parasitic form is having a high developed reproductive system. They are hermaphrodite. Next question. What are the reasons that you can think for the arthropods to constitute the largest group of the animal kingdom? You all know this, right? That this arthropodans are the largest, belongs to the largest phylum, and the very next large phylum after this platyhelminthes is after this arthropodans, that is the mollusca, right? Mollusca. Auricles are the sensory organ. Just like eyes, they are meant to detect the water that is present there, if some water is present there, or feel the solid object, the food material, right? And also they can detect some chemicals, right? So this is the auricles. So they are doing the some sensory functions to detect water, to detect the solid material, or to detect the chemicals. Coming to this question, what are the reasons that you can think for the arthropods to constitute to the largest group of the animal kingdom? This question is coming from the section NCERT section 4.2. So let us see the answer. What are the reasons that you can think for the arthropods to constitute the largest group of animal kingdom? Let us see the answer of this question. The following are the causes for the arthropods making up the largest group of animal kingdom. So let us see what are the features. First, they have jointed legs that allow them to be motile. They are having the jointed legs, and they perform many other functions due to these jointed appendages. So in which the environment in which these arthropodans are living, right, and the habitat in which they are living, this joint appendages help them to live in such an environment. A hardened skeleton made up of chitin protect their body. This chitin is a type of a polysaccharide. Polysaccharide, right? So there they are having the exoskeleton. Exoskeleton. They are not having any endoskeleton, right? So their exoskeleton is made up of a very hard polysaccharide that is called as chitin. Chitin, and that protect their body. This is the function of this, like you can say the skeleton system, to protect the body. So they are having, instead of endoskeleton, they are having the exoskeleton, and that is made up of chitin. Very, very important feature. Hard skeleton reduced water loss from the body. So this hard skeleton, okay, it protects the body, as well as it do not allow the water to be evaporated. So it reduces the water loss from the body. Demonstrate a different system for the locomotion, respiration, and reproduction. So it is also like this skeleton structure is actually helping in the locomotion process, respiration process, and also in the process of reproduction. Ability to live in the diverse condition and varied habitats. Now this arthropodans, they could be seen in a very like hot climate region, cold climate region, right? So they can live in a diverse conditions and varied habitats. So all these features, like their jointed appendages, presence of the exoskeleton, right, it is helping to live in the different habitats. In comparison to other phyla, they are pre-developed. Okay, they are not very much developed, but yes, they are pre-developed. Next question. Water vascular system is the characteristic of which group of the following? In which of the phylum we see the water vascular system? Hmm. First option A. Porifera, B. Ctenophora, C. Echinodermata, and D. Chordata. Don't get confused. There is a water canal system and there is a water vascular system. Water canal system we see in the case of Porifera. Yes, but water vascular system. This is the question. Let us see the answer in the next slide. So this was our question. Question. Water vascular system is the characteristic of which of the following group? So from the 4 given options, the correct answer is Echinodermata. Option C, Echinodermata, not the Porifera. Here they are talking about water vascular system. Water canal system. No, it is not water canal system. They are talking about water vascular system. So water vascular system is a very important feature of Echinodermata. This is their characteristics. A perforated panel in them known as madreporite allows water to percolate in their system. So they are having a very, like you can see in the case of a starfish, one of the example of Echinodermata is the starfish, and they are having the different arms. In each arm, they are having a water channel. They are having the water channel, and each channel give rise a small balloon like structure which is called as ampullae. Okay, and when they take the water goes inside these channels, what happened? Their arms are spread out. It spread out, and this water channel is working like an endoskeleton. So water get enter inside all these channels and all its arms are spread. But once the water comes out of its body, it all arms get squeezed. And again it get filled, all the arms get spread. So in this way, it moves from one place to the another, right? So this is all about today's session. Thank you very much for attending today's session. We will meet again. Till then, take care and bye.